Now, across Texas, the issue is.
I'm Stephen Dial in Dallas.
I'm Greg Grugan in Houston.
I'm Rudy Koski in Austin, and this is Texas, the issue is.
Well, the dust has settled on the 2025 November election, and there were no major shocks. Democrats winning the Virginia governor, New Jersey governor, and New York City mayor. And Prop 50 in California, the redistricting retaliation to Texas, got overwhelming support. I talked to Dallas Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and Irving Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne to see their take on, was this a flash in the pan or more to come in the midterms?
I think right now, no matter if you identify as a Democrat, Republican, or independent, you just want somebody who will fight back against what's going wrong. And right now, I think it is very clear, especially with the election results that we're seeing today, that the one thing for sure that is going wrong is Donald Trump. And the one person that absolutely has a record for always being willing to call out Donald Trump and fight back is me.
Congresswoman, you talked about redistricting and talking about voters being fed up. There's been talk about you throwing your hat in the race to run for U.S. Senate in Texas in this midterm election. What is your response to the filing deadline is a month away?
It is looming. But if you remember, and I think you probably will, I was basically the last person to enter the race for Texas 30. But once I got in, I was in and we ran hard and we were able to pull off a win in that primary. And so right now, I think that it is important for me to really get a pulse of the people. I think that we do have an opportunity, but number one, Kim Paxton has to be the nominee. That's just what it is. We need Kim Paxton to be the nominee. We know that national Republicans estimate that it will cost them approximately $250 million to win this election if Kim Paxton is the nominee. And so one of the reasons that I want to hold off a bit is, number one, I want to see if the trend continues to hold, that he may most likely be the nominee. Number two, I think that if we continue with the same electorate that we've had for the last 30 years in Texas, that we probably should expect the same result. I think that we've got to do something different. We've got to be able to expand the electorate. And so we are about to be testing in a very different way. We just went through some things and we're going back and forth with the team that we have that's going to be doing that. But we're trying to see, can we really expand the electorate?
The Virginia governor, the New Jersey governor, the New York City mayor, and Prop 50. Will that be an indication as to voter anger against Republicans in your eyes heading into the midterms? Or do you see this as being in a vacuum and isolated?
I think, look, New Jersey has always been, historically been for a number of years now, a Democrat state. That's to be expected. Same thing with Virginia. New York obviously has been very Democrat city, almost 85+% vote Democrat. So as awful as it may be for New Yorkers, I hate to say it, but you get what you vote for. And if you're going to vote for a communist, you're going to vote for a socialist, expect that, but also expect a mass exodus of your largest taxpayers into cities, into states that actually appreciate them.
California voters overwhelmingly supported Prop 50, allowing lawmakers to redraw congressional district lines, retaliation for what Texas lawmakers did. Now, other states may do the same.
So Florida now is saying that we're going to redistrict and we're going to come out with a potential new 3 to 5 Republican seats. So, I don't know if, California is going to balance what Texas is doing, and then you're going to see other states come out. But I would rather just see, independent groups pick these seats and have it based on population and just stop the gerrymandering.
Whether we look at Virginia, which when you start to talk about this redistricting scheme, or attempting to rig the next election for the midterms, because we know that the policies that Donald Trump has pushed and all House Republicans and Senate Republicans have signed on to, that have allowed us to be in this place in which economic harm is being felt by all, unless you are the top 1%ers, where we know families are being torn apart. If you tend to be maybe a little bit darker, it's so refreshing to see the people pushing back. And so while the president plays with AI videos and decides to dump poop on the people have decided that they're going to poop all over him.
Guys, poop was definitely not a word I thought would come up in that interview, but my word is uncertain because, as Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne mentioned, all of these races were leaning Democrat anyway. Rudy Koski, what's your one word?
Stephen, after that political hard court spin that we just heard, I'm going to break the rules. My one word is like a 6-step layup, and I'm going to go with March Madness.
All right, Greg, what about you?
Stephen, my word is tempest, and not the kind you find in a teapot.
The Fox Texas Trio will have more to discuss after this break. All right, we are back. Let's first tackle Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman, possibly running for U.S. Senate. Greg, your thoughts?
You know, I've long contended that a charismatic, highly pragmatic Tejano is the ideal Democratic candidate to catch fire and make a genuine stab at flipping a Senate seat in the Lone Star State. I still believe that. Jasmine Crockett fits none of those categories, and folks, anyone who believes the black-brown divide is overblown and a thing of the past, let me tell you, they are living in a fantasy land. And by the way, if you think the GOP Senate primary fistfight has turned ugly, just wait until the opposition research character assassins put Jasmine Crockett on missile lock. Look, the Congresswoman has been riding a nice steady wave of hyper-progressive national prominence, but winning statewide in Texas is not just a bridge too far. You know, it's kind of a kamikaze mission, even against the likes of Ken Paxton. But hey, it's always flattering to be part of the conversation, right?
Yeah, Greg, stars would definitely have to line up for a Democrat, let alone a polarizing figure like some may say Jasmine Crockett is. Rudy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you guys on that point, but what Congresswoman Crockett said was very interesting and very calculated. But the analysts who I have spoken to believe Crockett's ego will not be able to keep her from running. It reminds me of the insider push that put former state senator Wendy Davis into the governor's race. Remember that, guys? And that ended her political career. I'm not saying that's going to happen to Crockett, but Crockett is certainly not a Wendy Davis. She's more of a Trump-type politician, a bull in the china shop. And voters, you know what, guys? Voters seem to like a fighter. They seem to like all this political trash talking that's going on, especially the kind of stuff that Crockett and Trump are dishing out. So if there is, and if is a big word, if there is a Crockett versus Paxton battle next April to September, gosh, it could look like the old Detroit Pistons versus the Chicago Bulls, a matchup with a lot of elbows flying, some hard fouling. Man, it will be made for TV fight, right?
Oh, it would be must-see TV. Okay, Greg, Democrats won in New York, Virginia, New Jersey, California. I mean, if you know politics, I don't think there were any shocks there. But is this momentum for Democrats, or is it just them doing their job?
Stephen, I think the momentum is undeniable, barring the fact that the wins were captured in traditionally blue states. It's the margins that should scare the hell out of Republican strategists. Multiple polls tell us Trump and the GOP Congress have thus far lost the PR war regarding the shutdown, and the president is underwater when it comes to both handling the economy and, of all things, immigration. While they are nice trophies, foreign policy wins like ending the Israeli-Hamas war and slapping down Iran carry minimal weight with midterm voters worried about making ends meet and disturbed by images of masked ICE agents swooping in on immigrants, some of whom are criminals, but others who are just minding their own business. Bottom line, Donald Trump needs the economy to accelerate and a disciplined reduction of unforced errors, or this midterm could be a massacre that no amount of gerrymandering can offset.
Rudy Koski, you'll have the last answer. The New York City mayor-elect and the Virginia governor-elect, two totally different types of Democrats. Are the Democrats still trying to find their message heading into 2026?
You know, Stephen, the tone out of New York and Virginia election night may have been a little different, but the political rhetoric from the Democrats overall seems to be from the same sheet music. The analysis that I'm seeing indicates Democrats are locking in on that kind of midterm strategy that Crockett indicated she wants to see in the interview that she gave you. What is that? Keep hating Trump. Keep blaming Trump. Keep supporting controversial issues like gender identity, even though it hurt him in 24. Push the free stuff and keep hating Trump. Those are going to be the big issues, and I think that's going to be the fist fight that's going to be going on later on. Now, we're going to keep this political March Madness conversation going on, but after the break, we will look at how the statewide propositions may be factoring in to all this and into November. All right, welcome back to The Issue Is. Now that the November 4th election is over, the campaign to the March primary is picking up pace and picking up a lot of pressure. I spoke to Mark Jones with Rice University about the political tea leaves that Republicans are trying to interpret from those recent votes. Our discussion tipped off with the election night slam dunk provided by all those statewide propositions and what all that means for the midterms.
Perhaps the biggest surprise with the propositions was the large margin by which all of them passed. In previous years, there's generally one proposition that, for whatever reason, an organized opposition campaign, confusing ballot language, or something else, either fails or comes close to failing, and we didn't really have that this time.
Looking at the overall proposition list, the lasting impact proposition, I think, for me, is the dementia research funding proposition. The bail reform is also big. What's the biggest lasting impact that you think is going to come out of this batch?
There were three spending propositions for the Texas State Technical Colleges, for water infrastructure, and for dementia research. Those are three very consequential ones that will last for the foreseeable future, since that funding is now baked into the Constitution. Another baked-in item that's really important and consequential is the increase in the residential homestead tax exemption for school property taxes from $100,000 to $140,000, and even more for seniors and the disabled. That's another lasting impact in terms of tax relief that voters are going to enjoy for the remainder of the decade and in perpetuity until inflation effectively erodes it.
The passage of these propositions, do they signal that the GOP is probably on some good ground going into midterms?
I would not say that this is a good signal for the GOP. If I'm a Republican, I'm far more concerned about what happened in the special election in Texas Senate District 9 up in Tarrant County, where a Democratic candidate with virtually no money came within about 2.5 points of winning the outright with 50% plus one of the vote and avoiding a runoff, in a district that Kamala Harris won with only 41% back in 2024. And I think what that suggests, that at least up in Tarrant County, is that we saw an enthusiasm gap between Republican voters and Democratic voters, with a subset of Democratic voters far more mobilized to turn out and vote in an election where they could cast a vote for a Democrat or against Donald Trump, probably more the latter than the former.
You touched on this in regards to turnout. Vice President Vance noted in his response to what happened in Virginia, New Jersey, and New York, is that the Republican turnout wasn't as strong as they had anticipated and wanted. Is that the concern for the GOP moving forward now? Is that, even in Texas, you better get that base out?
This election is bringing up memories of 2018, when Donald Trump was not on the ballot to mobilize his supporters to turn out to vote. One warning message that Republicans need to take from this election is that the Democratic base is mobilized to turn out to vote against Donald Trump in the White House. Republicans, though, will not have Donald Trump on the ballot, mobilizing his supporters directly to turn out to vote for him. So they're going to need to do everything possible to get their base to turn out to vote. Otherwise, they run the risk of 2026 being a repeat or close to a repeat of 2018. And if you'll recall, here in Texas, Texas Republicans lost double-digit Texas House seats, a couple of U.S. House seats, and Beto O'Rourke came within 3 points of defeating Ted Cruz, and both Ken Paxton and Dan Patrick came close to losing as well.
History may not repeat itself, but as another Mark once said about history, sometimes it can rhyme, that Mark being, of course, Mark Twain. Stephen, are these familiar historical political chords and notes that are they being heard in North Texas? What are your Republican insiders saying?
Yeah, I think even though, and you heard President Trump say it this week, that he wasn't on the ballot, and so that's why Republican turnout or Republicans didn't do as well as some Republicans hoped From the Republicans I talked to on and off the record, they still are not worried about a huge backlash. Now, historically, the occupant of the White House's party makes some type of loss in the midterm election. I think Republicans should be concerned. Is it panic alert time? I don't know yet. We still have to see how much longer this shutdown will go and how many other Americans will be impacted by things while the occupant of the White House is Donald Trump.
Yeah, those warning bells may not be big bells, but I think the little dingings have started. Greg, Republicans like Senator Paul Bettencourt, they've got to love the election night result landslides for propositions on property tax and bond reform. And Mark indicated those could be positive tea leaves for Texas Republicans next November. But there are some political potholes in big races like the Attorney General's and the Senate. That could send the GOP bandwagon into the ditch. What are you hearing?
Yeah, Rudy, I think Mark Jones is the condor in the coal mine when it comes to the risk for Texas Republicans of repeating the disastrous 2018 midterm election where urban Democrats in Harris County and elsewhere ran roughshod over the GOP, fueled by Betomania and anger at Trump 1.0. The repercussions are still reverberating to this day, with Democrats firmly in charge of Commissioner's Court, wacky Lena Hidalgo still the chief executive, and redrawn precinct maps baking in the progressive advantage. That's not to mention the full slate of decarceration judges that came in, exacerbating a pandemic crime wave and pushing repeat violent offenders onto the street to rape, kill, and rob time after time after time. Now, Governor Greg Abbott appears clearly aware of the risk, recently committing much of his $90 million war chest to flipping Harris County red and fueling his likely reelection. Bottom line, if Republicans don't have their game face on come next fall, they'll spend the next 3 years attempting to reverse the liberal tide at the legislature, sort of a Groundhog Day, Lone Star State style. Rudy?
Guys, real quick for both of you, it's always about the economy. So are we going to look back and say this is going to be a Temu vote, a vote about losing Temu? Stephen?
It's all about the economy. It's always the economy. That's what voters are going to vote for in 2026.
Rudy, it's the
Greg,
economy, stupid, all day long, all century long. The economy, stupid.
All right, we'll end it with that.
All right, we've got issues, and we're going to talk about them on the other side of this break. Welcome back to the segment of this show, which has become our own Fox Texas Trio editorial platform for airing mostly legitimate grievances and occasionally cogent insights. I'll go first with New Yorkers' new mayor and the landscape-altering changes which fueled his election. You've all heard about free childcare, free buses, government food stores, fewer cops, more counselors, subsidized rent, all funded by higher taxes on the haves. The prospect of Big Apple socialism apparently has a big chunk of the population pondering an exit strategy. How big? Well, a pre-election poll by the Daily Mail found nearly 1 million residents absolutely planning to depart, and another 2 million considering redeployment to an alternative location. That's close to 40% of the people currently residing in the nation's biggest city. I guess that's one way to spark lower rent, although I'm not so sure the long-term ramifications bode well for Mondami's municipal coffers. I mean, would you buy New York bonds, Stephen, Rudy? Who's up next?
I need lower rent, I'll say that. I'm up next. I usually do sports. Today I'll do something serious. My issue is the government shutdown. When will it end? And now we are really starting to see the impacts. The FAA on Friday saying that they were starting a 10% reduction in staffing at multiple airports across the country, including here in Texas. We already know that people have missed checks. Democrats are saying that it's Republicans' fault. Republicans saying it's Democrats' fault. Regardless, from a strategy standpoint, Democrats have already been able to say that Donald Trump is now the record holder for the longest and second longest shutdown. So when will they come to the table to let people go back to work and get paid? That's my issue. Rudy, take it away.
Yeah, the spin going on with all that for the Democrats is just pretty amazing and pretty good spin on their part, considering they're the ones that are causing the shutdown. You talk about the ripple effects. This could carry over somehow into November and Thanksgiving. Hopefully, everyone had a great Halloween and all the ghosts and goblins got all their candies and things like that. We had a good group at our house. But staying with that food issue, I'm going to take a bite out of one that I just saw. Guys, I went to a fairly known sandwich shop the other day and walked in, and on the window, they're advertising their Thanksgiving Day sandwich. Now think about this. This is turkey. Oh, that sounds good. Cranberry. Okay. And stuffing. They're putting stuffing onto a sandwich. Now my wife and friends like, oh, that sounds great. No. Stop the madness. You don't put stuffing on top of a sandwich. That just kind of, would you take a bite out of that, Greg? Huh?
No. Hey, I got to tell you, I forgot to put this in. The Houston Police Officers Union, moments after Mondami was declared the winner, sent out an invitation to any and all New York police officers who want to work in the Lone Star State to come on down to the Bayou City.
Brilliant. That was brilliant. Stephen, I'm going to ask you, will you bite into that sandwich?
If it had ham instead of turkey, I would try it.
You can see this and our other interviews by going to our YouTube sites.
And keep the conversation going by hitting us up on social media.
Politics never stops in Texas, and neither will we. In the meantime, don't forget to let us know what you think the issue is.